You spend majority of your day doing something that you hate, whether it's your work, your school, your circumstances that are entirely beyond your control. There are more people at work whose baseline are burnt out than not. It kind of explains a little bit about how society is slowly turning into an aggressive, bloating, almost blowing pumpkin and an extremely flat dead plant. I don't know if those metaphors makes any sense. I've heard from a comedian before that it says the difference between a homeless person and somebody who is not a homeless person is that the homeless person does not have as much luck. A series of negative events and circumstances that deteriorate their lives, if it happens in a short amount of time or a prolonged period of time consistently, then people went into burnout. That's a mild scenario. If not, it can go into much worse scenarios. It really says about how burnout and circumstances can be so out of our control sometimes. When you feel burnout, there are many different factors that affect your health or your being. For example, one is obviously physical. When I was burnout working for a startup, I could feel cold feet, but at the same time, I could feel my whole body sweating profoundly in a air-conditioned room. Or sometimes I would be able to feel that tingle in my stomach. I thought I was hungry, but unfortunately that's not the case. There are also other psychological effects like brain fog, decision fatigue, or difficulty to concentrate on things. I remember that when I was at my peak of burning out, I can't really get myself to be focused very, very easily. I would be scrolling my phone just to fulfill myself or have something passive going on because it's very hard to be intentional and focusing on something. It requires a lot of energy and focus. The last thing is relational effects. So this one, it appears on how you relate to others. In my case, I kind of unintentionally chase people away who are trying to help me. It's kind of a negative trait, but when you're burnt out or when you're in a negative spiral, you find it very hard to self-regulate your emotions. It kind of affects not only yourself, but your relationships that are nearby you. You can be very defensive on default. You can be very irritable. Like anything and everything can annoy you. Even the smallest things can make you feel very sensitive. With that much negative impacts, that much negative consequences, I understand why you might be blaming yourself sometimes. I did too, for blaming, I blame myself for burning out, or I blame circumstances as well. I blame a lot of things when I was burning out. One reason why you're not responsible for burnout is that your system is functioning well. When it's overloaded and when its capacity is just full limit, it can't really sustain itself anymore. It does whatever it can do. It burns out. It reduces your functions so that you can keep sustaining your life. Its biological functions functioning the way that they're supposed to function. It's not your fault. But unfortunately, even though it's not your fault, it's still you. So it makes sense that you would want to blame yourself or that you feel guilty, but here's another reason why you shouldn't do so. If you already start feeling guilty, that means that you know you're burning out or you know your situation and you desire for a change. You want a change. You can imagine maybe, perhaps, of what kind of change that you might be able to make or the kind of change that you want to make. You have an idea of that. And when you have that, that's literally the starting point that you can be to get out of burnout. You might be asking, I'm still in here. I'm in the depths of burnout. Why would you say that just because I feel guilty, I'm already in the starting point of changing? But that's the whole thing, because you already have the awareness from here on out. If you're going to actively try to change and get better to get yourself out of the burnout stage, holding on to that guilt more is not going to do you any more positive. It's just going to be an extra baggage on your journey of changing yourself. You don't want to overload even more on a system that's already overloaded because of the burnout. So the question, how do you get better from burnout? Burnout can be very circumstantial. a lot of things can happen in your life that are so much beyond your control. So one thing you can do is that really evaluate and assess where you are, where your life is, what's happening, and think about how you can get out of this situation. Why are you burning out? Is it because of your work? Is it because of your circumstances at your home? Is it because of the economy, your country? So you try to find the reasons of your burnout and assess, can you make a decision to change it today? More often than not, that's probably not going to happen. It usually takes about a couple of months at least. I'm talking about from my experience. Normally, if you already are burning out, it is not as easy to recover in a mere week or in a couple of days. It doesn't happen that quickly. But you have to assess where your end goal is. For example, let's say your work, your boss is terrible, your pay is terrible, but you can't change your job yet because of circumstances. Then what you can do is acknowledge the burnout, and then you try to make a plan to start applying jobs or to start networking more, to ask around people that you know, what other jobs can you take on? You set yourself a timeline or a goal and you keep working towards it. I say set a goal and timeline, but again, a lot of things might not go the way that we planned. So the timeline and goal is more like a soft goal or a soft timeline. You have an idea of where you're going. What matters more is the direction that you're going towards. The timeline is less important than the direction here. Other things you can do is to physically discharge yourself. Burnout is really accumulation of stress piling up each and every little day, or maybe a couple of events in a single day. But when those pile up in a sustained amount of time, then it can really impact you negatively. You can't drop the whole ball altogether, but you have to let go little by little so that it doesn't increase the amount too much. When you're trying to find the peak solution or you're trying to address the root problem, you don't want the little branches or leaves getting in your way too much. Research consistently shows exercise reduces cortisol and improves mood through endorphins. So regardless of how much intensity you want, for example, some people want running as an activity, some people want walking, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is that aligns with you. You try to make some movements. It doesn't have to be every day. Let's just say you can only do it once a week. Once a week is still better than none a week. Another thing that you have to be wary about is to consider your natural cycles. Now, it may be a little less obvious if you're a male, but if you're female, we have hormonal cycles. Even if you disregard the hormonal cycles, it still applies the same, that sometimes our moods can fluctuate. So for example, today you are motivated for a change, you are extremely eager to make an action to improve your situation, you plan the whole thing, but tomorrow you might not really feel as much, you don't want to do anything, your body is so heavy, feeling flat, can't force yourself to take any actions. It can happen. Be a little gentle on yourself on those days. Just because you weren't able to continue your plan the next day, it's not a complete failure. You have to keep moving on. What counts is on the long term picture, you keep going. That's how you get out of the burnout. Just because you failed one day, you shouldn't count those days as, oh, this is already a failure. Black and white thinking in these kind of circumstances does not serve as well. What matters is that you keep going and don't stop. You can be failing 1 day, 2 day. Let's say you only meet your goal 3 days a week, and that's still fine. Maybe next week it'll be 4 days a week. You have to admit it's not always going to be perfect. Yes, there are some pauses, you need break, you take a break, but you have to be aware that as long as you don't do a complete stop, it's not a loss. But of course, taking a whole 1 month or 2 month break and then coming back for a day or two isn't going to do you much. But if you are able to sustain it for about 3-4 days in a week, I promise you're still making progress. One last thing that you can remember is that when you are trying to get out of burnout, you have to be more aware of your symptoms, your signs. What are your signs of burnout? So different people have different signs. I've mentioned a couple of mine before, like cold feet or feeling emotionally flat or heavy. For some people, it can be difficulty to sleep at night or changes in appetite, like you eat a lot or you don't want to eat anything. When your signs happen, try to be very wary of that. Try to catch your signs, because your signs tells you which cycle you're in right now. Are you in a severe cycle of burnout? Do you need a break? How would you give yourself a break? Do you need to get some movement and feel better? Do you need to listen to music? You find some ways to defuse that stress, or you address that burnout. Where in your body can you feel the tension? Is it in your arms, in your legs? Is it in your stomach? Is it in your head? There are signs, physical, or if it's relational or psychological, there can be signs all over the place. Try to be aware of that and tell yourself it's okay to burn out. And you'll find a way to address them one by one, slowly, and you keep going. Burnout isn't your fault, but unfortunately, having to fix burnout or getting out of the burnout is your responsibility. Forgiving yourself is not dismissing your burnout, but it's acknowledging and moving on to the next stage. All the best.